right, this is episode number 21 of the Sports Consiglieres podcast. My name is Jim Whalen. Jim Whalen, along with me is my friend, my colleague, my consigliere, the voice of Woodridge football, the state hosting the state for his first state champion tournament game at Woodridge High School. Jerry, how you doing, Jerry?
Good, Jim. Great to be here with you. Coming off a
Right.
few very, very good shows and a lot to discuss.
Yeah, it definitely is. We kind of balked on any guests. We're got a couple feelers out there for guests, but I think let's jump right into the Yankees. They didn't get swept. First time they were going to get swept since the '76, but I think you can't compare the Big Red Machine of the '76 Reds and the Yankees team of '76 to this team. So first time they met up with the Dodgers in 43 years. Last time was '81. Believe it or not, the Yankees are 2-3 in this century with World Series, having beaten Philly in '09 and the Jets in 2000 and losing to Arizona in '01, as we all know, '03 when Burnett mowed them down at Yankee Stadium, and then this go around. What's your thought on the recent World Series and the Yankees team, Jerry? What do you got?
Well, I think, unfortunately, listen, the way they went out, probably the worst inning that I've seen in professional baseball, let alone to happen in the World Series. And, the bottom line is, they should have won that game. They should have won game one.
Okay.
And the bottom line is, what's really going to change, right? So everybody here knows the outcome. The Yankees lost in the World Series, right? Everybody knows game one probably took a lot out of them. They know the clinching game, the Yankees absolutely threw away with a 5-0 lead. Now the question is, what happens going forward? And going forward, it's not going to change. Going to have the same general manager, the same manager. The team's going to look a lot different. Okay, a lot of question marks. You have, obviously a lot of free agents. We'll get back to that in a second. But the bottom line is, to come out and lose the World Series in the deciding game the way they did, and then almost immediately the general manager I know what he was trying to do, but the general manager was almost like a blank, rubber stamp decision. Yeah, the manager's coming back. Well, it was a god-awful inning. There was the Yankees all year, I wouldn't say have played fundamental baseball. I know you can make that argument, around Major League Baseball is a lot of things that happened in the game when we were kids don't exist because there is a lack of fundamentals probably all the way down to the youth level. But again, at some point, okay, this is Yankee baseball. This is the Yankee organization, and I like Aaron Boone. I like him, but at some point, somebody needs to be held accountable. And let's not forget the gentleman who's now an employee of the Yes Network in a limited capacity was fired, obviously Joe Girardi, for looking to hold particularly Gary Sanchez accountable for his play and his work ethic and the way he was going about being a professional baseball player. And he got fired. So I just don't. I don't understand. Since when did the Yankee job, the Yankee organization, the general manager's job and the manager's job become almost like a lifetime appointment? Because really, does Brian Cashman get to go out on his own terms? Is that what we're doing here? I just don't understand it.
Well, if George Steinbrenner was,
it wouldn't. He'd be gone.
And then I can't imagine that fifth inning was probably one of the worst. And I've been watching baseball a long time. It's probably one of the worst innings I've seen as far as baseball goes. I thought I was watching, my daughter's softball game. You're up 5-0. You said we're going back to L.A. But the Judge fly ball. The Volpe throw I can kind of see. Cole not running to first base. I don't understand that. I don't know why Boone changed up some of the lineups. How come he didn't put Cabrera at first base or changed it up a little bit? Because obviously Rizzo was a former shell of himself. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
there's a lot of questions.
It reminded me, and also you mentioned game one. Game one reminded me when Cash took out Snell in a game six of 2020 when the Dodgers ended up winning that World Series. When he was throwing, when he was in it because of analytics, it was his time to come out. Cole's making $40 million a year. They had to win one of the two games at LA, and they didn't do it. He was on 88 pitches. He had a lot in the tank. He was pitching well. The game went to extra innings. I know you have your buddy has an affiliation with him, but bringing Nestor Cortez in that spot was tough. And if you did bring him in that spot, you got him in Otoni out. I would have brought the next guy in just to make him play a little of the psychological game, like have him think about the moment and bring the next lefty in the bullpen. But that didn't happen. They ended up losing game one. Game two wasn't an issue, and then, like I said, they were looking at almost 48 years since they got swept by the Big Red Machine in '76. So,
well, again, like you said, though, I mean, I think you really scratched this more than scratched the surface there. People are going to remember this series, right, for one inning, and it's going to come back to Judge, Volpe, and Cole not covering, right? But like you said, right, there are way more decisions that were made that made a huge impact in this series. And, again, it comes down to the manager. You put Cortez in a relief spot, hasn't pitched in a while, hasn't pitched relief in even a longer time. And when was the last time he pitched relief where he painted a relief appearance where there was men on base? So, I mean, there's a lot of different factors. The whole thing, which I don't understand about analytics is basically taking over a lot of sports, as we all know. But you have Cole on the mound, 88 pitches. Come October, this time of year, there's certain things that are out the window. And I actually referenced the other day, the reason why a guy like Jack Morris was always money. He wanted the ball. Not that Cole didn't want the ball, but he pitched 10 innings one playoffs game. You're going 100, 105. There is no tomorrow. And I think what happens is
Al Leiter's problem. What he picked 141 games in the Subway Series. What are we doing here?
And I think Boone looks at it like, I take him out because I need him later on in the series. Like you said, that's out the window, baby. You have to win. If you could win any series, right, any sport, you want to, of course, win game one, especially on the road. I just don't get it. And then, you talk about the history of the Yankees and the Dodgers, and it's a great story, as we all know. I mean, it goes back, all the way to Brooklyn. But at the end of the day, right, I think it's ironic is that the last time, the Yankees were in the World Series against the Dodgers, right? They were coming off a season. So 1980, right? They lose to the Royals in the playoffs, so they don't make the World Series. Dick Hauser's the manager. They win 100 games, right? They fired a guy who won 100 games and got them one series before the World Series. The following year, Bob Lemon comes in, and I know this was still crazy, George, God rest his soul, still crazy George time. Bob Lemon comes in, and ultimately he lost his job because he lost a 2-0 lead in the World Series to the Dodgers, and particularly mishandled Tommy John. He was fired. So what happens next year? Next year, right, you bring back the same manager. We've already been down the road of basically chopping at Boone's staff. You got rid of Phil Nevin, who was a big Boone guy. Amongst other people, we went through the pitching coach. We went that route. There's two people that need to be held accountable, and that's Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman. And they're, I guess, the rumors you hear and the things people say, they're happy that they got to the World Series. The team is doing well. They're running it like a family business, I guess. But at some point, what is going to change going forward? The roster is going to change. Now now Soto is on the open market. You're going to compete with the Dodgers. You're going to compete with the Mets. I think the Mets are going to really go, obviously all in.
Yeah. I mean,
first base is going to streak. Second base, I'm assuming they're going to move Jazz to second. They'll let Torres walk. He's going to command a decent buck. He had a good postseason. Volpe at short. I guess you'll put Dominguez in the outfield. Stanton will still be your DH. Judge will be in center, and at the end of the day,
Verdugo's probably gone. They're talking about
he's probably gone, and you're basically stuck with the same manager because, I mean, it is. I mean, there has to be a standard somewhere that somebody is held to, and I really don't know what that standard is. I think they treat this like, hey, this is a bonus. Normally we just been making the playoffs under Boone. Now we actually got to the World Series, and they look at it like, hey, he took us to the World Series.
But it's been 15 years. 15
right.
years, like you said, two and three in this century. I mean, he only won 2 Worlds. I mean, like you referenced in previous episodes, this is the Yankees we're talking about.
The Yankees,
highest payroll in baseball. But Soto's definitely going to be targeted. He's going to charge. He's probably going to be at $660 million. Obviously, Dodgers, Braves, Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees are going to be in the front runner. It depends where he goes. Verdugo, I think he's going to be gone. And talking about Dominguez is going to be in left field. Rizzo, I think, is a former shell himself. I don't think they're going to have it. I think it's a $20 million pickup on him. I think he's gone. I like, good guy, but he just his age helping. And also Garrett and Cole can walk out of his contract. So we'll see. And then Holmes may be gone too. Clay Holmes is going to be gone. So who do the Yankees go after? I heard Bregman from Houston. They said Chisholm going to second base. I also heard Alonso maybe going to first base, move him to first base. So we'll see. And Canley from the bullpen is up. So Max Scherzer's out there. We'll see. But Manaea from the Mets, but I think he's probably going to stay with the Mets. So we'll see. And then Yamamoto, but I think Yamamoto's probably going to stay with the Dodgers. But we'll see. But it'd be interesting to see where Soto goes. So that's going to be the
absolutely.
biggest. And then
remember who his agent is getting. Who his agent is, excuse me. He's not giving he's not giving anybody a discount. But,
he's not
again, it's just frustrating. Like I said, I mean, to me, they underachieved this year. Cashman puts the roster together. They underachieved. And, at the end of the day, how many times is this going to happen? Obviously, like you said, you want to deliver a World Series. You fired the last manager and he won you a World Series. So I really don't know. I don't know the dynamic of the relationship with Cashman. I mean, nobody really does. And Steinbrenner, obviously, Cashman is being rewarded, for the early success. And, he was very successful early on. But like I said, when does this job become a lifetime job?
And the thing is, who are you going to replace him with? That's the other thing. Who's out there? But
yeah, but again, when you start thinking like that, that's when things don't change. And as they say, the more things, things just remain the same. Like I know we went from a period, and I referenced this, Steinbrenner, God rest his soul, he was changing managers, once, twice a year, pitching coaches, coaching staff, so on and so forth. But at the same time, right, I get it. You need stability, but I mean, what is the end game for Boone? When do you fire Boone? Like, what has to happen? Do they have to not make the playoffs? I mean, this is Yankee baseball. I mean, they basically squeezed out Buck Showalter because they thought he was too much of a control freak, and he got them to the postseason for the first time since '81 in '95. So, I mean, it's just head scratching is the right word.
Exactly. So, off season will be interesting. See who they spend the money on. See how Steinbrenner, wants to make the team competitive again. But we'll see. But turning to the football, Giants right now 2-6. Jets are 3-61 last night against the Texans. Texans were 6-2 coming in. So Stroud's not playing well. They lost Diggs. So who would you say would be the biggest disappointment in the New York era this year? New York. The Jets or the Giants?
Oh, without question, it's definitely the Jets. Again, really nice win last night, prime time. Wilson had a phenomenal night. Again, nobody thought Robert Saleh was going to get fired. Nobody thought the Jets would have 3 wins on, November 1st, myself included. I actually made the claim before the season, I believe, on one episode that after the first game, there was a possibility the Jets could be 6-1. I mean, based on that roster and that defense, there was no reason to think otherwise. So, they were clearly in all-in mode. Win now, obviously, big talk, Super Bowl. Rodgers is up there in age. But at the end of the day, they're the disappointment. The Giants, I would say, so far has been more frustrating than disappointing. And I know when you say that, people look at you, but not many people really had any expectations out of the Giants this year. Now you look at the schedule, right? And that's just the way New York is. I mean, everybody around the NFL really wasn't expecting big things out of the Giants. And, it's been a complete nightmare. They can't win at home. They can't win in prime time. They can't score touchdowns at home. There's a lot there. Did I think the Giants, I thought they would be around maybe realistically 7 wins, going into like November, mathematically alive for a playoff spot. But man, the penalties, Daniel Jones, as much as I love him, I am a card carrying Daniel Jones. I should be the president of his fan club, but yet, the mistakes that he makes should not happen if you consider him to be your franchise quarterback.
Well, yeah, and then
there's a lot there. There is a lot there.
Well, then also now, I mean, was it drop passes? I think, or the neighbors dropped a couple passes. Robinson dropped a couple passes in the game, the missed field goals. So I think they're playing well. But we look at the Pittsburgh Steelers game; they're in that game. The punt return, took all the momentum out of there. And Jones, I mean, we talked about this in a prior conversation where we're just getting ready for these next couple of shows. Do you think he's on the chop block? I know Ojolari, I know you like him. I love him too. Slayton, I could see him talk about the Texans. I could see him picking. I mean, he's in a final year of a 2-year deal. So there's a couple. Do they start shedding players now and getting ready for next season? Or
again, what makes me laugh about that is you get and this is a shot at the New York media. They're like Shane, he's probably going to move Slayton. He's probably going to move Ojolari. Again, I said this last year, right? Last year, did anybody really think at the trade deadline, based on what happened in the offseason, that the Giants were really going to re-sign Saquon Barkley? What happened? You let him walk and you got zero. You got zero for him. So again, what should happen in New York Giant land and happens are two different things. I mean, again, I would have had no problem. I mean, if you look at the way the negotiations went last year and they tagged them, right? Then you look at the Hard Knock stuff. Why did you weren't with, like Bill Belichick had a great line that for another few million, the Giants could have had Barkley. Instead, they spent money on a guard, which he was referring to John Runyon. So you knew this. You should have moved them last year. If they don't have any intention, and Slayton has been the good soldier, averaging about 800 yards, leading the team in receiving pretty much most of his career that he's been there. You don't have any intention of signing him, move him.
Yeah,
Ojolari is a tough one. It's a tough one. I know the rookie contract is ending, right? He's only 24. I mean, he's had some injury trouble. Like they say, edge rushers are they're obviously a high commodity, which is why they got Burns. I would like them to keep Ojolari, but what is he? What are you going to pay him? You obviously have all that money committed to Burns, but
with Thibodeau being out, he was a good piece of the puzzle. But I mean,
absolutely, he stepped right in.
Yeah. So I mean, but looking through the season, Pittsburgh could have been a game that they could have won. But all right, we'll toss out. Eagles was a bad loss. Barkley ran all over him. I think had extra motivation. The Bengals that was a bad loss. So they're right there. But I mean, facts are stubborn things. They're second worst team in NFC behind Carolina with 2 wins.
So and I didn't think it would be that. I didn't think it would be that bad. But now putting all this aside, does Brian Dable come back?
I think he comes back because I think that if they got rid of Gano, that would have been a win there. A couple of the penalties. I mean, there's been a couple bad situational penalties that where they had big plays. The state Stanton, Slayton, run they had. I think against the Browns. I mean, that came back. That changed the whole momentum of the game. In the Pittsburgh, the neighbors penalty when the Theo Johnson. I mean, penalties, untimely penalties really changed. I think there's enough there to bring him back. So I don't think it's him. I just think it's more of the team underperforming, and then also the secondary. Secondary is young, and now they're getting a lot of injuries. Flop was that has been out. Baker, they had a bench. So I mean,
And Tyler Nubin has really good numbers. He's ranked high, as a listen, Shane had a good draft class this past year. He did. All those players are contributing. There's no denying that. I mean, the numbers, the stats are the stats. But here's the thing, Dable, and I like him, right? The whole thing, you bring in a kicker that you knew was banged up, right? That was that's something that probably only happens to maybe the Giants and the Jets, right? Seriously,
yeah,
you're not prepared, right? You're not prepared to kick a field goal. The kicker goes down, and you knew the kicker was banged up, right? The penalties are disturbing, and John Mara, he made the comment, I got to be more like my dad, be more patient. He had Shermer for 2, Judge for 2, McAdoo didn't make 2, so it looks bad. But now are we going to basically keep a guy, right, because you want to just be more patient? And I don't know. I mean, I think it's a very difficult question to answer. Are you going to keep this regime around to possibly bring in your next quarterback? A lot of mock drafts have them taking the kid from Georgia, whoever it is, right? But now, you're basically telling this regime that you're hitting the reset button for them.
yeah.
So, my opinion on Dable is I really think you have to see what happens the rest of the year. Do the players quit on him? Do things get worse? Those are questions that have to be answered. I mean, listen, I get it. Mara has to say now early in the year, it was October when he said it, that they're coming back. You don't want that speculation. But if things really get bad,
if he loses the locker room, then
it's a problem.
And listen, I remember you talk about Parcells. Parcells has been anointed as probably patron saint of the Giants football. I remember going to games when people were calling for him to be fired. They were 3-12-1. So it's just in New York, it's a win now. I'd say keep him, but then again, are you going to rebuild with a coach that's been there for 3 years, what better person to have as a head coach to get a new quarterback? So the biggest question: what are they going to do with Jones if they get offers this season for, like, say, Miami with Tua? I mean, are they going to jump on Miami? And also with the injury clause with Jones, are they going to continue to play him? So a lot of these questions, I don't know.
I'll be shocked. I don't see them trading Jones, because the question is, what value is somebody? What is somebody giving back to you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if somebody's right for the playoffs and they have a team, I don't know. I don't know.
Miami. I think Miami has more issues than a quarterback.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's one example. And again, everybody wants their own guy.
Yeah. Very true.
Everybody wants their own guy. I mean, yeah, is somebody going to take a chance on, Daniel Jones to fill in for somebody, throw a team out there? I don't think Miami. Miami has a lot of problems. I don't think Miami would be an option. It's just a bad situation. I mean, and like you said, you're going to have, you look at Brian Dable, 3 years, they caught lightning in the bottle year 1. Jones played well. They made the playoffs, won a playoff game, took a step back in year 2. Injuries, we get it, so on and so forth. Year 3, what are we really doing here? Now, like you said, let's say they draft somebody. Now you're going to start in a rebuild with a young arm in year 4 with the same regime. Has that really even ever happened? I don't know if that's even ever happened where somebody set the reset button. And please, let's not talk about the Bengals Marvin Lewis, I thought he had that job for life. It took them forever to get rid of Marvin Lewis.
Well, if you look at
You know,
Pittsburgh, you got rid of Roethlisberger, and they're still making the playoffs under Tomlin. So
correct.
is that
Model of
consistency?
consistency. That is a good example of why you should be patient. Say what you want. Mike Tomlin has been delivering. Say what you want.
Yeah, and look
He's
at them.
held that together. Defensively, they're always good. They could always run the football. They stay true to their core, their Steeler values, running the ball, cold weather, tough defense, and they're there.
And what, 3 coaches in the last, 50 some odd years. So no Cower and then
Cowher and him, and
so,
all 3 have been very successful.
what do you think about the Jets? You have any predictions with the Jets as far as, and then how does Woody Johnson come across the fan base? Because I know there's been chance at sell the team. Woody Johnson, he had Saleh. He thought he got fired. Got Ulrich in there. He's definitely not the guy. He's going to keep the team afloat. So where do they go, and where do you see that ending? You think it ends badly, or they make the playoffs, and Rodgers has his swan song? Because I don't think there's too much left in the tank after this season for Aaron Rodgers.
No, and again, see, that's the other thing. I think this year they don't make the playoffs. I think it ends badly. They caught the Texans on a good night for them, a bad night for the Texans. Again, you bring in people for that job. I mean, I have, as everybody that's listened to this show knows, I'm a Giant fan. I have never really rooted against the Jets. But again, man, it seems that this organization is constantly starting over. And again, there was a story out today. I didn't get a chance to really break it down and read it, but how it's out there how, Johnson could be erratic to work for. And, I didn't think Todd Bowles did a bad job.
Yeah.
They sent him out of town. Now look at Todd Bowles is having success, in another organization as a head coach, right? Sam Darnold's having success in another organization. Geno Smith is having success. I guess in another year or two, we'll wait. Zach Wilson will probably be having success somewhere. So is it really the Jets? I mean, this whole thing, Belichick is not taking that job.
I think Belichick is. I think he's retired. I mean, maybe as a consultant, but retired.
He's not taking that job. And, again, for anybody that comes in, the first question is, what do they do with Rodgers? Is Rodgers going to stick around for another year? I mean, until that's answered, that's a big if, because nobody wants to tackle that job, I think, with Rodgers there.
I mean, he was fun to watch. I mean, he's fun to watch. He's still got flashes of brilliance. He's a great quarterback. I mean, nobody threw the long ball like he did, but I mean, he just doesn't, maybe the Achilles come back or whatever else. I mean, maybe with Devontae coming back, they might find some magic, but he got everything he was asking for with the Jets. Even probably got the coach fired. So I don't know. I wonder how that locker room is. And then the defense looks shoddy too. The defense was supposed to be their core, but it looks like the defense is also shoddy. I don't know if Sauce Gardner, I don't know if their defense or offense are figuring him out. I mean, the secondary doesn't look suspect.
Yeah, but again, I think what happens is it's no secret sauce here. They get rid of Saleh, and defensively they go down the tubes. This guy is over his head. He's running the defense. He's running the team. He switched up the offensive coordinator. There's a lot of layers there. To why they're not playing good football.
And you're a Jet fan, you're probably, what the, like, where do we go now? Like, if they don't make the playoffs, like, I mean, where do we draft another quarterback?
Listen, there's nobody on the NFL Network, nobody on ES. There's nobody thought they weren't going to make the playoffs. There is nobody. Rodgers is healthy. Boom, great defense. He has weapons. He got a few of his guys. Nobody thought they're going to win the division. And again. Why wasn't that realistic, right? Miami is struggling, Buffalo, and you got New England in a rebuild. So, I mean, there's no reason to think they shouldn't have won the division.
And ho-hum, you have the Kansas City Chiefs at 7-0. So, I mean, that's going to be the road to the Super Bowl, unless.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But anyway, I guess we're at the midpoint. You're getting to see what teams are going to separate from the pack. The Giants. I just hope that they just, hopefully just keep the season alive. I mean, a lot can happen in the season in the second half.
Sure.
So we're here in November. I'm not as optimistic as I was game one, but I'll still keep watching, still support the team. But anyway, got any parting words, Jerry? I know we're up to a half hour. Just want to get this episode in before your state tournament games, and I know we got a couple things next week that we can't make the show. So
yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, these last few guests, I unfortunately missed the Joe Klecko interview, but we had Perry Williams, Billy Yard, Stephen Baker, and again, it was really, really good to talk to those guys. I mean, those are all four of those guys, and I'm including Joe Klecko here. I mean, really represent good New York football memories, for everyone that was around, to watch those guys,
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to that sack exchange, 30 for 30. You said this.
Yes.
So that should be a good one. But check out past episodes. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Sports Consiglieres. We're on TikTok now. I'm putting a lot of shorts on TikTok at Sports Consiglieres. And find us on Facebook. Jerry, you want to take us out of this episode number 21? What do you got?
Yeah, once again, thank you for joining us. We'll be back soon, probably with another New York Giant guest. And a special shout out to our number one fan, Pat Monahan, who is very excited about his New York Rangers. And he's also a very big Ann Burrell fan who was at the Ranger game recently. So, Pat, we know you're listening.
Yeah,
all the best. And, thanks to our producer, Dave Sturcio. And, again, another episode in the books, baby.
Yeah, thanks. And Dave produces this episode at Chop Sports Media. If you're looking for podcasting, he's available. Any other events, he also does. But check him out. Thanks, Dave, for producing this episode. And this is episode number 21. Enjoy the games, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.